soul's out of the body, having died, having a life review, has a sense of where it's at in its evolutionary journey,
Hmm.
has an accumulation of karma, left the world with this vibrational state. All of that's a part of what goes in is the choosing. It's
Hmm.
like, okay, given those conditions, now I think, on a soul level with the council type of thing. Okay, well, your case. You see, we can say like we choose the sun sign, but it's not really even that simple. It could even be just that, okay, according to the whole gamut of where you come from, where you're at, on a deep, deep, deep soul mind level, the soul just knows this is what would be in accordance to the next incarnation.
Yeah.
And woven within that is karma. Okay, invariably, it can't be as you can't invariably, and there's good karma. Okay, positivity that the continuum brings with it, all of the actions that were oriented to unity, meaningful contribution, positive personal self-cultivation is a part of it.
Yeah.
And then, okay, and then um, we bring all that, and it just may be that, okay, well, with all of that, the idea is to be born into a body via what would be called a soul contract is the idea with the
Yeah.
parents at a deep subconscious, at a deep soul level. They may not have a ton of choice, but they may have some choice, but there's a soul contract that completely transcends the perceptions, attitudes, and notions of the ego personality quite significantly.
Yeah.
Because people will give birth to people who will have very, people can be very lovely people who give birth to children that are very difficult karma. Like they could
Mhm.
be have tendencies of psychopathy and all
Right.
kinds of things.
That's very true.
So, and even if you leave the world on a battlefield, you're going to enter into a battlefield. You don't just choose. It's the word choose is tricky. It's kind of like a little bit like giving too much, kind of, it's not the word English, as I mentioned, is a low language. So the
Mhm.
word choose is not quite accurate. It's just
Right.
not quite right. It's full of ego and then, oh, you chose all this difficult stuff. It's like, no, no, no. That becomes very simple. It simplifies and the person's left feeling like gulp. I chose this. Why the hell would I choose this? But
Right.
when they go into deeper understanding, like what we're talking about, a deeper consideration, they can enter into a deeper appreciation and a deeper sense of responsibility.
Hmm.
They become more, okay, I'm the soul incarnate who reincarnates, and I there's a continuum. I pick up where I left off, and there's a rhyme and reason, time and season, and my astrology tells a story about this whole continuum, like where what the plan for this life is by the by a theme of destiny. Is that what you're saying? I'm going, yes, that's what I'm saying. It shows that, and other tools do too, but astrology is particularly good. Very, I don't know which one could be better. I've studied numerology, tarot, other oracles, and they're all wonderful. They're all useful.
Yeah.
And it's all in the end how it really comes down to the meaningfulness of your contribution and there's many levels. So yeah, all the people doing tarot and oracles or numerology or any system of astrology or psychic, it's all good
Yeah.
if it
It
makes a
is.
meaningful contribution. It's all God, it's all good if it makes
Yes.
a meaningful contribution. Astrology, admittedly, is just that much more kind of like scientific in an engineering sort of way. It's
Hmm.
mechanical. Okay, that's why
Right.
it's kind of got more linear precision. It doesn't make it strictly better, but it's just that it has more linear precision.
Yeah.
So,
So if we looked
okay.
at astrology in comparison with the other modalities that you just mentioned, astrology would be more like a map of the United States as compared to like maybe a city or county map. Would you say that's an accurate analogy?
Well, it is a map. It's an archetypal map. It is more global than that, but in a way, like it's got the earth, air, fire, and water. It's the four directions are in it. It's based on time, so it's very planetary, just first of all. Where we end up geographically has a map. So yes, there's maps within the map kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like any location on the planet is a feature of the planet. So astrology kind of has that planetary perspective, right?
Right.
Oh, it's a planet. Yeah, and it gets into very fundamental earth, air, fire, and water, north, south, east, west. Yin and yang is in there, and it goes into this, whole archetypal inclusiveness. Now, all the others do too. The numerology, the tarot, which itself is like a child of astrology and numerology, by the way. That's what the tarot is. Okay, and then the various oracle cards, which offer archetypal principles, which activate intuitive in insight and
Mm.
impressions, which can be very valuable. So it goes on and on, right? It just so happens though, the astro and again, just mechanically, linearly, literally, astrologists is more able to offer details that the others don't as much, in my
Mhm.
observation and experience.
Right, because
There's
the
various
astrology actually does show our destiny, right? Is what you explained to me that it actually does show our destiny, where maybe you'd have to be a really super gifted, intuitive reader to see someone's destiny through other modalities.
Yeah, and it is possible that there are those available rarely, probably, but yes, yes. But it's also, yeah, it's possible, but they even then it would lack the ability to share that objective. They can't sh that the thing is nice thing about astrology and other tools, it's there it is, it's objective.
Right.
It's like there you could every time we put up the chart, it's going to come back to the same thing. So it's not like okay, that's really kind of important to understand. Now, what's important also to understand is the astrological chart. It's the very construct, the very design, the very science of it, the very just what I just said is invariably, absolutely, and completely riddled with karma and destiny.
Yeah,
Everything in it,
that's amazing.
every little degree, every little point, everything is karma and destiny. There it is. So
Yeah.
you can't kind of the notion of karma over here. Oh, I'm going to or people will say, well, I'm going to choose this. I'm going to go. Good luck with that because see, if you see that's ego, the ego, I'm going to choose this and I'm going to choose that. It's like, okay, choose is part of destiny. It's part of our conscious mind navigating through the world and our times and the culture and the economy and all
Yeah.
the politics of the day. So yes, we definitely the choose factor is always there. It's very, very relevant, very important. But the deeper thing is that the higher thing is my choosing ideally is in deep alignment with my karma, what we call, generally speaking, ancient Sanskrit, karma dharma, my karma destiny.
Right.
So when you like in this regard, when you look to astrology or any tool, you're kind of somewhat humble. Your ego is humbling itself to the fact that it can show you things that will influence your choices.
Hmm.
Like you're going to choose, like you see, people want to go, I'm going to choose for myself. I reserve the right. Okay, fine. You can do that all you want. Go
Yeah.
ahead. It's your prerogative. But in a way, there may be a bit of fear.
Yeah,
There's a little bit of,
it really reminds me of this piece of our conversation really reminds me of the very first intuitive reading I ever got, which was by Stephen Hairfield, who I mentioned to you earlier. And he said to me, in that reading, you will be doing what I do. And I was like, yeah, right, whatever. And then as we chatted, he told me, he said, I don't think he used the word destiny, but basically there was something that I was meant to do in this life. And he goes, as long as you follow the path that you're on and you don't shift over to the path that you should are supposed to, meant to be, whatever words he used to be on, you will have a very bumpy experience in this life. And
as soon
he
as you
was
use
so
the
right.
word
My life
meant,
was such a chaotic mess for a really long time.
and yeah, that's right. I appreciate that. I'm sorry to hear that, but good for you. Meant, the word meant is destiny.
Hmm.
You were meant, you were destined, synonymous terms.
Yeah.
Also, that's important to consider here is that alignment is the higher road when you're in alignment. Now, the question is, can we be in alignment purely by meditating? Can we be in alignment purely by spiritual practices?
Mm.
The answer is kind of yes and no. I've met a lot of people who have practiced spirituality for many years. They're kind of assuming that they're kind of above, they're beyond their astrology. I'm going to transcend that. Or I don't really choose. Okay, it's true. Astrology is an interpretive art, and you want to be careful how the interpretation is done and how well, whether it's been empowering, whether it feels true. There's different styles of approach of astrology. Some is very predictive and very fortune telling like, or some could be very fearful,
Right.
kind of, a bit of manipulation going on. So it's fair enough that there can be a bit of caution. And a person can feel their way through their life too empathetically, intuitively, instinctively, rationally. But what I've noticed is even a lot of spiritual people are kind of a bit sleeping. They don't know it. They think because they're in a spiritual group or a spiritual practice, they kind of don't, I don't need that. I'm like, okay,
Mm.
it's fine. You don't have to. But it's like you're still wandering in the desert without a map. And no matter like like people like Stephen, for example, your teacher, your mentor,
Yeah.
he didn't use astrology, he was just intuitive, right?
Intuitive, yes. Now he may know,
Okay,
I
that
mean, I think he's very knowledgeable about a lot of things, so, but he didn't like bring it forth in an astrological way. It was just
yeah,
more intuitive.
and that's quite exciting and good for him. And but you notice that, okay, and I appreciate that he helped you a lot. And what he said was very relevant, very true, very helpful. But at worst, vague. Vague. I'm going to tell you why I say vague.
Right.
Because astrology will tell you
Yeah.
when, precisely, not kind of, not maybe. Like when you're looking at an astrology chart, you're looking at a wall of clocks. And they're very precise. You go that and see where we look at the clock, we see a singular clock, and that's what time it is. This is a little bit like looking at the clock of all the multiple cycles and what time it is. And then the job of the astrologer is to synthesize them. But there's various techniques and ways they can do that quite well. And they can tell them when. But a lot of astrology is kind of presented as sort of reactionary. Like,
Right.
okay, oh, this is going to happen. Oh, well, that's kind of a lower kind of astrology in my view. The higher is who are you? Why are you here? What is your destiny? What karma do you have? And it's there. There's no
Yeah.
and by the way, you can't just clear the karma. Now you can clear like it's like saying the karma is like the mechanism. Okay, it's like a mechanism. Now you could say you had a mechanism of some sort, like even your computer or some machine, okay, and you've used it a lot. So what you can do is literally take it apart, clean it, or just clean it, whichever way you do, you clean it. Will it work better? Will it have a higher vibration? Yes. So what you've done is you've removed the residual karma. It's a way of describing karma, like the gunk,
Right.
the dust, the debris, the rust, if you like. The you can okay, so healers that are going to clear the karma, and I appreciate that some people are gifted in different ways, and there's various techniques, and they help you clear the karma. That's lovely. That's beautiful. But did you clear the karma? No, of course not. It's a ridiculous thought. When you understand karma, you go, well, no, of course not. It's like saying you cleaned the house and you wiped out the house. It's like, no, 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 no. Karma is still there. And by the way, by like, so we can live our life more consciously by different levels of awareness, by different, higher roads, lower roads. You see, because your whole, like when we say karma dharma, the reason why that alliteration poetically is so valuable is because you recognize the karma dharma. It's not just rhyming, they're like yin and yang. It's like karma destiny. You cannot have one without the other.
Yeah.
And any notion that you can is a misnotion. It's
Yeah.
like a misunderstanding, in my firm opinion on that. It's like, no, but that's where people get very confused. Well, I'm going to clear the karma, or somebody, you're going to go to that healer, they're going to clear. No, they're going to maybe clear some things. And I think that's really awesome. You feel like, wow, if you went and got your computer all tuned up or your piano,
Right.
and wow, it's looking so much better, right? Okay, so you get what I'm trying to say. I say this with a bit of emphasis because I hear a lot of people talking, and I think you're confused. You don't really understand. You're in a theological belief system, I can tell. You don't understand the science. You're in spiritual la la land. You're not understanding that spirituality can be understood scientifically through metaphysics, or generally speaking, spiritual science.
Right.
So now it's not necessary to go at that level. And you, with your friend Stephen, he helped you. So there's
Yes.
great value in that,
Right.
great value, but it still is relatively vague and okay. And um, in light of wanting to be more precise, in light of wanting to know when more, which can be helpful in a whole series of ways. So that's the basic essence of it. When you deal with the astrology chart is the very embodiment of the principles of karma and destiny. There's nothing in it that's not that. And the astrology chart, like the themes of that astrology is revealing. Astrology is not it. It's only a map, a tool, a mechanism that's revealing a larger cosmic order. That's why in the previous one uh, chat we had with the sun, we live in the sun, and
Yeah.
then the planets in the solar system. That's showing you the cosmic mechanics. Okay, that's the cosmic mechanics. So once you understand all this, now you're into a more scientific, objective perspective on your karma dharma. You get past notions that I'm just going to clear your karma. It's again, you can imagine how kind of silly that sounds.
Yeah.
You can clear the residual karma. So you remember karma, okay, just a couple of qualifiers. Karma has many layers to it. There's core karma. Okay, that's archetypal, core karma. Then there's layers, and then the most surface level of karma is just residual. Like if you the like cause and effect,
Hmm.
it kind of becomes physics. If you don't have like bathe, if you don't bathe, clean your body,
Yeah.
there's going to be some karma.
There's
Okay,
definitely
not
going to be
only
some karma.
there's going to be some karma, and if you persist in not cleaning your body, the karma is going to be higher.
Right.
You're going to increase your susceptibility to disease. So your free will is, your choosing is contributing to your residual karma, but your deep karma, the karma you were born with, itself represents a likelihood, a probability factor of you producing more negative residual karma or more positive. So when we say positive karma versus residual, just to be clear, if you are oriented to health and you eat well and hygiene, you're going to create karmic effect that is, now what the word would be, you know, positive or beneficial karma
Hmm.
in the now, in the immediate, in the relatively basic, fundamental, everyday, versus the other residual karma, which is simply the accumulation of this and that toxins, gunk, blocks over time.
Right.
But these are all surface levels of karma, but there remains, and I continue to say this is the point I want to make, core karma that you were born with that's linked to your destiny, and you're on a soul level, you want to continue with the positive momentums created, but you also, by your destiny, and this is the idea of destiny, by the way, is that a part of the feature of destiny, when you fulfill it, when you realize it, when you are consciously able to orient yourself to it in a rather precise way, you're invariably, if you do it in the right attitude, awareness, spirit, if you like, you are going to clear the core negative karma.
Hmm.
Okay, like you're going to clear. When I say clear, what I mean is you're going to raise the entire vibration of your being um, to align yourself. So, for example, when Stephen said, you're going to be doing what I do, what's you're doing, by the way, is and I see it in your astrology, by the way, just PS. Like I know that sounds a little strong, and oh yeah, sure you can. Oh, well, yeah, I can. Now, admittedly, astrology is an interpretive art, and it's very important to understand that astrologers coming from their own paradigm, their own knowledge, their own experience, their own intuitive access,
Right.
their own sincerity. Oh, big ball of wax, okay. And being what it is, it's like music. There's different schools of thought. Okay, so it's not entirely a pat thing.
Right.
That's important to note. Okay, yeah. So all of which is simply to say your life was a mess because you're out of alignment with your destiny.
Yes.
You were in your socially conditioned egoic self, lost and confused, and you could have even turned to a religion which could have helped you, but it could have contribute to being more lost and confused at
Right.
worst. And you might also, people sometimes they plug into a guru and they think now I can afford to be kind of irresponsible a little bit.
That's true.
Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, oh yes, they kind of think, well, now I'm kind of protected. It's like, no, no, the
Missing the
law
point.
is the law. Yeah, like that saying, each we stand before God on our own is a more accurate way of describing this. So the whole idea is that yes, you can see the karma dharma story in an astrology chart. I'm not saying that with the astrology chart, you can see all of a person's karma. But trust me, we have karma lodged in our deep subconscious that isn't strictly necessarily a part of this life soul plan.
Right.
So there's deep and accumulated karma. So there's not like it's not as circumstantial, and it's the people often think of, yes, karma has like can be described basically as cause and effect, but the transcendental metaphysical definition is that it's causes and effects that transcend time and space. Like for example, so I'll go on just a little bit more. There's species karma. The humanity has a karma. Then
Right.
there's like national karma. There's ethnicity karma.
Yeah.
There's familial karma. There's social karma. It's inescapable, and people go, "Oh, you're overrating." No, no, no. If you understand the word karma well, you understand there's nothing in existence that's not related to it. It's a fundamental, it's like space, let alone air.
Right.
It's hard to, you kind of get it's almost a little frustrating. They're like, oh no, they're kind of sorting and categorizing and putting it over there. You
Yeah.
can't, like, you don't, I think to myself, wow, you don't understand it, what it means.
Yeah.
And okay. And then destiny comes in, and it's a probability of what, how, when. And astrology reveals that with such erudite precision. It's like it make your head shake. Like I can tell you, it's really beautiful that way. It remains
Mhm.
that when a person goes to get astrology, the interpretive process takes time, because the interpretive translation to impress upon the person what you're seeing can't be done like it takes time.
Right.
It's a complex and sophisticated. It's like thinking that you it's a little hard to explain quickly, but it's like, what can you learn in an hour and a half or 2 hours, really?
Right.
Like, well, yeah. So it's an interesting thing. Like as an astrologer, I'm sure this is true of many astrologers who are well seasoned, practiced, knowledgeable, aware, bright, brilliant even. They still are gaining new insights from their astrology charts. Kind of remarkable that way.
Right.
Oh yeah. And partially also because the natal chart can be reinterpreted again and again, because it's like you could watch a movie again and again. You can read a
Right.
book again and again.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Or you can have a certain experience again and again. It will always be a little different.
Yep.
But also the fact that all the planets are in motion, they're moving. And so the karma dharma, so dharma, destiny, is woven. Okay, this is important to think about destiny. Destiny has, like, when you look at the birth chart, there's kind of a static aspect of destiny. It's showing you kind of like, here we can sort of talk about all the themes and aspects and levels of destiny. But another aspect of destiny is the dynamic of everything in motion.
Right.
Like time moves on, and
Yeah.
all the planets are always in motion, and it's their interrelationship between each other that's the real story. And it's a really beautiful and miraculous thing to say. They're never in the same relationship as a whole twice. It's always from here to the end of time different.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's like there any two planets can form, and they will very rhythmically, very specifically. Two planets will form a conjunction. Okay, it's a very form of basic mathematics in the study of planetary cycles. But when astrology, and this is a very important principle of astrology, and the more aware astrologers always say it, the chart must always be assessed as a whole,
Hmm.
as a whole.
Right.
Okay, so anytime you look at the new conjunction of, say, Mercury and Venus, the contextual environment of all the other planets to which they're intrinsically related is always different.
Mhm. That's
Okay,
amazing.
so it's a beautiful thing. It's a very beautiful thing. It's no wonder the ancients were gaga about astrology.
Yes.
The- and the Chinese, the Indians, the Mesopotamians, the Greeks, and by the way, they all, like with mention as I mentioned at the beginning, culturally came out with their own version of it.
Hmm.
But we still, in this day, even today, there's people who are remain dogmatic about astrology like a religion, and they'll say this is the only astrology.
Right.
Usually it's the Vedic. The Vedic astrologers are absolutely dogmatically glued to their version of astrology, which is wonderful but limited. And they kind of base it on this fact and the constellations and this and that's like they really don't. They're unfortunately they're causing a lot of confusion in the astrological world. It's just like they're different languages, and so, but they kind of feel there's kind of a proud arrogance almost, like India is the seat of the spiritual world. Well, India is kind of like a mess, you ask me. Like it's a mess of confusion and overpopulation and disease to this day. It's a kind of an ironic thing, because they created a culture of transcendentalism and not being in enough, like, you understand what I'm trying to say? It's
Yeah,
kind of
I
like
think
people will
we've gotten
say,
away from those core values a lot in not just that area of the world, but in many areas of, I mean, in our own country, even, you know what I mean? So I think getting
uh,
away from those core values and the, what was the word you used? Communion, uh,
yeah,
that,
that's a word I
I
like a
think we've
lot.
gotten away from that so much, and then now we're trending back towards it again, but for the longest time we lost it and it did create a big mess. I mean, golly, our own country even, holy cow. I mean,
Countries, as I mentioned, countries have destiny and karma for sure. The United States, there's a moment when, for example, the so-called fathers of the Declaration of Independence
mhm,
got together, okay, and drew it up and signed it. And the moment they did that signature together, of which there's a little bit of debate, they said that this is a co-creative principle. We all directly and indirectly do this. If you start a business at a certain date and you sign or you launch it officially, that's the moment it's born, and
right.
you're participating. Yeah, and it
You've set
has
that in
invariably
motion.
it is subject to karma and destiny right away,
Right.
immediately, because it can't not be. And notions that it's not is just misunderstanding. It's they just don't understand. They're oh no, I'm going to do whatever I want. You got to make it happen. Well, yes, but it's like saying you're going to make the waves happen at the ocean. I'm a surfer. I'm going to make. Oh, okay. Good luck making the waves. Okay, you can make a pool, but it's not going to be the same thing as surfing the open ocean.
Exactly.
It's a
Yeah.
communion. Surfing is like a religious experience because like a communion with the wave, with nature,
Yeah.
skiing, all these things, right? So, but like, what are you going to go create the waves? Are you going to create the mountain? No, so you're not just going to create it out of, sure, we can go about anything we want with a very flexible, adaptive mindset, like Tony Robbins teaches, which is really great. Just to go for it and try hard or try something else. It's all very wonderful. But there's different approaches to anything. So you can go
Yeah.
open, just wing it, just go hard, or you could access the wisdom of a tool,
Yeah.
which is going to show you themes of when and what and timing. It's not trying to impose upon a person. Uh, it is simply is helping them like a map. So, so yeah, this is the things I wanted to share with you today. Dee, that's why, this whole focus of astrology, karma, and dharma to offer listeners a different understanding, one that's more intrinsic.
Yeah.
The principle of astrology and metaphysics, etc., is holistic.
Mhm.
That's the main key word that can, for everything that I share, that if they listen to what we did earlier, they're going to get this principle of holism. And holism is communion, inclusiveness, oneness. So you can't suddenly, if you think that way, you understand holism well, you can't take a word like karma out or destiny out. It's that's the ego mind divides, sorts, categorizes, and differentiates.
Mhm.
So invariably, it must be the ego mind that's coming in with notions that of dividing, sorting,
Yeah.
categorizing, differentiating, separating. Those 5 words: divide, sort, categorize, differentiate, and separate. That's what our ego mind does,
Yes.
which is fine and good and wonderful, and it's valuable. It's how life is. We need that. But the projection of the ego mind will take words like karma and destiny. Oh, but I'm going to use my free will, or oh no, and this. They're kind of like not realizing that they're projecting their ego mind and separating it from their reality. So
Right.
that's kind of one of the most, that's the main thing, or among the main things I wanted to convey is, and that the astrology, wow, it shows both, basically it shows what you could call process karma, just where you are at in your journey as a soul. It shows the karma of lack of meaningful personal self-development, or or the positive of personal self-development. You can see in the chart what constitutes where the person was egocentric, wayward, selfish, uh, lazy, addicted, confused, lost, anything that contributes to a lack of meaningful self-development. So we are meant to be cultivating ourselves with wisdom,
Yeah.
which is the high side of religions, that helps us, it
Right.
inspires us. That's definitely, so I by no means want to leave people thinking I'm against religion. No, I think religion is wonderful. Just don't get too biased and attached to the one you're doing too much.
Right.
Just see it as like a music you're interested in, or a flavor, and don't get too, well, what would become biased, right?
Right.
Too. And then you can become locked within a very kind of limited sort of cultural framework of a certain wisdom, perhaps at best, but then you start calling it the truth. Oh, here we go. How could,
Exactly.
yeah,
I'd like to say this. There's a maybe a good time for me to say that, you and I had a post chat after one of our interviews recordings one day, and you did share with me some of the things that you saw in my chart. And I've been on this journey for a long time, and there's been some really intense moments, lots of beautiful moments, but some really intense, moments where I, wasn't quite sure how I was going to get past those things and make my life different than it was. And it's been a beautiful journey altogether because I allow myself to see it that way. Lots of learning moments. I don't believe in being tested. I can't stand that term. You're being
right.
tested by the universe. I don't buy that. Like I just don't like that term. I feel like we have learning moments that are presented to us to see, like to just give us the opportunity for growth. That's how I view it. But you did share some things with me, and I just was completely amazed by those things and consequently changed lots of aspects of my offer, my mentorship, how I present myself forward to the world. And um, I changed my whole website, and it was largely due to the things that you told me that you saw in my chart that really resonated with my soul. Because when I
Beautiful.
feel like when we look at these things, we need to feel into them. That's a really, really important piece that I feel needs to be in place for everyone, to feel into the
Yeah.
concepts that are brought forward to you and see how they not only make you physically feel, but how they make your soul feel. Like, it does it feel aligned? Because I'm not one to just, and over the evolution of my journey since I got into the coaching slash mentorship world, it's been a constant change all the time because I wasn't there yet. You know what I mean? And I feel like we need to allow room for movement. So I just, I flowed with it. Okay, I'm changing my offer again. I'm changing my offer again, and just allowing that. And then when you told me the things that you saw in my chart, allowed me to, like, I just felt like it's the closest thing to feeling in complete alignment with my offer as anything that I've ever been. Like, I just feel like this is it. This is like encompassing the wholeness of who I am as a soul, so that I wanted to share that with people. And it comes from a very, very heart-centered place. And so thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. Yes, my pleasure. Yeah, I appreciate that feedback as well. Yes, that is the higher benefit. It's not, most people approach astrology with kind of notions and either, or, very specific orientations or maybe mild assumptions or agendas and so forth. Not always, but they do. And that can get in the way of them realizing what's available. It's kind of an indirect form of control.
Right.
The whole thing of testing, by the way, is kind of like it's kind of like projecting onto the universe a kind of like an ego, as though
Hmm.
that suddenly having, oh, I'm going to test you now. But
Right.
you see it perfectly well, is that it's all part of the continuum and the flow of that. There's times when we invariably, yes, could be described as having experiences, which could be described as, lessons, and could be described as tests, but the key word more is experiences.
Yeah.
That, and in the journey of destiny, we come to really strong turning points, and we are challenged to let go, to go with the flow, perhaps evolve,
Hmm. Yeah.
adapt. And that's where we hit these, crises points or ending points, graduation points, turning points. And these are all very measurable. That's the beauty of it. I know what I wanted to say before. Thank you for that. That helped me to remember that the other kind of karma is the karma of lack of meaningful contribution. So
Mm.
there's the karma of, there's basically speaking, there's developmental karma, like where you're at in the journey. There's karma from a lack of meaningful self-development, which can be anything from selfishness to denial to disillusionment to confusion to addiction, which is not, they're not judged, but it does create negative karma, like
Right.
residual karma that could be, but not just residual karma in this life, but it kind of gets stored. If you leave the world in those lower, however you leave the world, toxic, restricted, limited, selfish, narrow-minded, bigoted, anything, that's coming back with you. It's coming back. You're going to pick up, right? You're going to be born into an environment that represents all of that.
Yeah.
Just like, you're not just going to choose that environment strictly. No, it's got to be a match.
Yeah.
Okay, it's got to match. Okay, so that's important. So I've listened to this one friend who Facebook friend who I usually like what he has to say, but he was saying how, oh, the Buddhists say you're on the other side, out of your body for 49 days, very specifically, and that's it, and then you're born. I'm like, that is complete. I
Hogwash, as my
cannot
dad would
buy
have
that.
said.
I could not buy that at all. And other spiritual teachings and teachers that wouldn't agree, I'm sure. There may be for a certain segment to which that occurs, but it's a very linear notion. Very, I thought, wow, I found that kind of affronting practically, but but anyway, the idea is that we can develop ourselves. The idea that I've become very appreciative of is that, we one could be out of the body for years. In
Mhm.
fact, it is said centuries. You
Right.
can be okay because you're in a not in other, out of the body or in other dimensions. Time's not the same anymore.
Right.
So souls can be out of the body. And I go with that myself. This very linear notion of 49 days, I thought. It sounds like I don't know, serial to me, like some kind of very rigid thing. Anyway, the point is there's developmental karma, there's either positive or negative personal self-cultivation, self-care, self-development, in all the various ways that that might occur for any person, just being healthy. And that can include mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, by the way, just
Yeah.
maintaining a nice equilibrium. The other one is what I call contribution karma. Like if you're divisive and aggressive and nasty and hurt people and you have some agenda and I'm gonna do this and you're, you know, creating harm, which, you see, sometimes harm, like in a relationship, you can get into conflicts and, oh, I hurt that person's feelings. Does that create negative karma? Not necessarily. Not, it could, a kind of, it might like include that if there was a selfishness, it's
Mhm.
true. But if you left the relationship, say, because it was out of alignment with your truth, that you would go, okay, for that you get rewarded. For the element of selfishness that might have occurred within your whole dynamic, you might get a credit and debit. You got, a little debit for that. It's like in the Olympics, right? They're perfect, but we got a little, you lost a
Deduction.
point or two here.
Yeah.
You got these really high marks, but we had to, yeah, just like that, just like that. So you can't, you don't want to be anal and neurotic about it. So you just keep trying your best the next day, and
Right.
you seek things like forgiveness or atonement, etc. But people, it can be difficult because people can be loaded with projection, agenda, enmity, resentment. So you can't even approach them, right? You,
Right.
you like, and this is, I'm specifically referring to relationships because life is all about relationships,
Yes.
right? And if we look back, you ask yourself, did I make any relationship mistakes here? Most people would probably say, yeah, a few.
Sure.
Like I was a bit selfish, I was a bit assumptive, I was a bit self-indulgent, I was a bit lacking empathy, all kinds of things. So, it's not great. You're like, that's the word atonement. So if okay, that's not great. But if today in your actions and tomorrow and going forward, you're creating new vibrations, new realities, new experiences, and you're raising your vibration, increasingly those misdemeanors become kind of in effect reduced significantly,
Right.
especially if your new attitude, behavior, action reveals that you're no longer think and act that way. Then you've evolved, right?
Right.
So that would be, it's fairly obvious to say these things, but the chart shows in basic terms where a person did or didn't. And it's not a judgment. It's not like it's not about that. It's just about the ability to measure and objectify. And it shows. So yeah, the whole chart is a theme of a process where you or I or any person as a soul is at.
Mhm.
It points to whether we did and cultivate ourselves positively, negatively to some extent, whether we did render meaningful contributions or not, and it shows a whole dynamic. It seems like the universe is morally neutral, so it kind of, and it doesn't, like it. It's funny to say that, it's a long conversation. I'm not going to get into it too much, but it seems like there's a kind of a little bit of, like, it's not a person with negative karma could become very wealthy. They could have, like, in other words,
Yes.
they can have very brilliant, they can be like brilliant, so they
Yeah.
can have like all kinds of opportunities that stem from their genius even.
Yeah.
Okay. but they can be psychopathic.
Right.
It's the classical mad scientist who's got all this karma of a genius mind, but their orientation, their attitude, their interpretation, their notion, their whatever it is, their intention, their agenda can be really nasty.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, and the universe seems like in a morally neutral kind of way, it goes, well, it's all part of the game. So that it's just the way it is. It's like, in other words, like God or existence is going to step in and stop that person.
Right.
So that's where it becomes more of the species karma, collectively, nationally,
Yeah.
socially, we're kind of responsible for one another.
Yeah.
So if we
One of the
indirectly
things
are,
that I
if we
feel like
indirectly,
too is when there is a person like that, because people will ask questions. Well, they're this horrible person. How do they have all this success? And how do they have all of these material things and all of this money? Because they're this really actually at the core of themselves, they're not really a very good human, you know? And
exactly.
when I have someone ask that question to me, I always say, you don't know what their life looks like outside of what you're seeing. You don't
That's for
know
one thing.
the days that they're,
That's
you know,
one.
that they can't even lift their head off the pillow because they're so, or maybe they have all these addictions that you don't know about. So you're seeing only a snapshot of this person's life. They're showing you what they want you to see. And yes, they may have money, and yes, they may have the Ferrari or whatever, but they may be living in hell inside of themselves, and that's what you don't get to see, you know? So,
That's definitely a part of it. And that's also the attitude of more is better and materialism and attachment and privilege and pleasure. And it gets, that's all kind of becomes a kind of ego land there.
right,
But it's fair enough that they say that, but they're projecting lower ego attachment, desire, notions of what will feel good and so forth. So
yeah,
that's where it becomes very unconscious. But the other thing also is that it's, as I said, it's like there's collective karma, and we indirectly enable people who and it becomes a part of the political social dynamic because
mm,
the person's presenting themselves this way, and some people think they're great or wonderful, and other people kind of in their perception interpretation think that we see right through it. We know what you're really doing, and we
right,
see that you seem to have justified the ends by the means by the end. You have this notion that, oh, well, I'm going to do this because it'll be good, or it'll help this, but you're hurting people. That's called a kind of hypocrisy, right?
right,
Like, let's say eugenics, let's reduce the world population, it's like, well, that you're if you take a position to, I'm going to reduce the human population, well, if you weren't so hypocritical, you might start with your own children, but you won't do
right,
that, will you?
right,
Okay, so that's so, but then this in the social dynamics, this is where it gets all very more complex. So we'll kind of keep this brief, but it's like we indirectly enable that person. So this is where you get into species karma.
hmm,
This is where you get into social, collective, national species, like we there's all these players, but and we can't, each and every one of us, we have our own journey, our own destiny, our own responsibilities to fulfill, which is good. But and we need to do that. But it kind of begs the question, and the God knows, shall we say, that whether there was reason and opportunity